First place medal investigative report. They sued us for asking inside Santa Cruz County's culture of concealment, retaliation, and the missing millions. By JohnBrakey, Director, Audit Elections USA, Exploring the Culture of Corruption in Santa Cruz County, AZ. June 26, 2025. Introduction. Santa Cruz County, Arizona, is mired in a culture of corruption that demands honest scrutiny, mandatory employee training, and real reform guided by public citizen oversight through an independent commission. Our recommendations begin on page 13 of this report. In recent years, a wave of scandals has revealed just how deep the misconduct runs. The county treasurer pleaded guilty to embezzling $38 million in public funds. The county assessor admitted to accepting bribes for over a decade to lower property taxes on select properties. Funds have also gone missing from the county attorney's office, just the tip of the iceberg. This report investigates the systemic corruption within Santa Cruz County government, how it has directly impacted me and my organization, Audit USA, my former home county, and most importantly, how it has harmed the people of this community. At the conclusion of this report, we outline a clear and actionable roadmap for breaking the grip of corruption on this border county. On Monday, June 23, 2025, former Santa Cruz County Treasurer sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for $38 million theft. A simple request led to an unjustified lawsuit against Audit and me. I've spent the last 21 years investigating election systems across the United States. I believe in public oversight, accountability, and that election records belong to we the people. But my simple records request to Santa Cruz County turned into a 3-year nightmare of retaliation, intimidation, and legal shenanigans, and it's still ongoing. In July of 2022, I submitted a routine, lawful public records request for the cast vote record, CVR, from Santa Cruz County's August 2nd primary election, a record that the county had provided in the past. The county responded by filing a lawsuit against me and Audit USA in connection with the CVR request. For nearly 3 years, Audit USA and I have been at the center of a legal battle that began with this simple, lawful request for a public record known as the cast vote record, CVR, from the county's July 2022 primary election. What happened next was outrageous, and just one example of the disturbing pattern of obstruction, retaliation, and concealment that has plagued this county for decades. Instead of complying with Arizona public records law, the county took an unprecedented step. It retained the private law firm Pierce Coleman to sue me and my nonprofit organization, Audit USA, to prevent the release of the CVR. This retaliatory letter, later ruled legally indefensible by Pima County Judge Casey McGinley, was just the beginning. The stated goal was to determine whether CVRs are public records. But in truth, the aim was to target me in retaliation for my past interactions with the county, to bankrupt my organization, stall public access to key election records statewide, and intimidate me and others to keep us from asking questions. Santa Cruz County should have dropped its lawsuit against me when the Superior Court judge made it clear, at the very beginning of the case, that the county had no right to sue me simply for requesting a county record. Arizona public records law allows a requester of records to sue the county, or any governmental entity, if not satisfied with the county's response. It does not allow the county, or any governmental entity, to sue the requester of records. Despite the judge's clear statements and rulings on this matter, and despite the clear intent of Arizona public records law, Pierce Coleman has delayed the process almost 3 years, filing multiple appeals and running up huge legal bills that are wasting taxpayer money while avoiding accountability. Press freedom organizations have termed lawsuits of this nature, such as this one against Audit and Brakey, as SLAPS, which stands for Strategic Litigation Against Public Participation. This describes the practice of using legal action as a means to silence individuals, including journalists, activists, and citizens. Such litigation is intended to suppress free speech and participation, and it is too often effective in achieving that aim. Not only did Santa Cruz County file an unjustifiable lawsuit against me and Audit USA, a lawsuit we didn't want and didn't deserve, the county is attempting to recoup its $100,000 legal fees from us. Furthermore, all of the counties in the state of Arizona are refusing to provide the CVR database until this case is resolved. To make matters worse, they're claiming that Arizona Statute ARS 16-625 makes all electronic records non-releasable. That's nearly all the election records. The history that led to the county's retaliation against Audit USA and me. Santa Cruz County, Arizona, has a corruption problem, and it's time the public understands just how deep it runs and how it works. The editor of the local newspaper, Manuel C. Coppola the Nogales International, noted in a 2024 editorial that the Board of Supervisors display complacency, arrogance, and disregard for their constituents. He observed that the county manager's main concern about the $38 million embezzlement by the county treasurer seemed to be that it had been leaked to the public. In an executive session YouTube video that was released publicly, either by mistake or intentionally, Supervisors Manny Ruiz and Bruce Bracker expressed concern about the newspaper informing school districts of their plan to file a civil complaint on August 2. The officials from these districts are involved in a situation where at least $27 million out of the missing $39.4 million has been lost due to inadequate oversight. They certainly have not liked my observations and reports over the past 17 years, which cast light on the county's flawed election procedures. In 2014, I successfully sued the county after it denied me access to basic election records, and the county had to pay $38,000, something I had every legal right to do. But I now realize that resentment among the members of the Board of Supervisors in office at that time continues to run deep regarding that lawsuit and other investigations conducted by AUDIT AZ/USA. When I asked for the CVR in 2022, they saw an opportunity to retaliate against me. Note, 2 of those supervisors were voted out of office in 2024. That's why I stated, Santa Cruz County may be one of the most corrupt in the country. This is my 4th investigation into the county. A summary of previous Santa Cruz County investigations by AUDIT AZ/USA since 2008 will be included as addendum number 1. Santa Cruz wasn't the first time a public treasurer orchestrated a major embezzlement scheme. A strikingly similar case happened in Dixon, Illinois, the birthplace of President Ronald Reagan. Rita Crundwell, who served as Dixon's comptroller and treasurer from 1983 until her arrest in 2012, embezzled approximately $53.7 million over 22 years. That's a staggering amount for a town of just 15,000 residents. She siphoned the funds into a secret bank account and used the money to bankroll an extravagant lifestyle, including building a nationally recognized quarter-horse breeding empire. Watching the documentary about the Dixon case helped me better understand just how these schemes work and how communities can become complacent in the face of obvious warning signs. The patterns are familiar: lack of oversight, misplaced trust, and a culture of silence. Frankly, if Santa Cruz County Treasurer Elizabeth Gutfar had continued undetected for another 12 years at the pace she was draining county funds, she would have surpassed even the Dixon embezzlement. At the current rate, the losses would have exceeded $75 million. Here's a link to the documentary that explains how this kind of fraud unfolds and just how easily it can happen. Watch the video. Lies, fraud, and deceit. Gutfar sentenced to 10 years in prison. Rita Crundwell was sentenced on February 14, 2013, to 19 years and 7 months, a total of 235 months, in federal prison after pleading guilty to wire fraud for embezzling approximately $53 to $57 million from the city of Dixon, Illinois. This nearly 20-year term was the maximum sought by prosecutors. Gary S. Shapiro, United States Attorney, said, "Unfortunately, this case serves as a painful lesson that trust, without verification, can lead to betrayal." Election night incidents and a pattern of intimidation and threats. On the evening of the August 2, 2022 primary election, I was invited by then Elections Director Alma Schultz to observe ballot processing from the public viewing area at the Elections Department. Upon arrival, I quietly took a seat in the designated public viewing area against the wall. After I had been sitting there for a few minutes, a woman turned around and asked me if I was Mr. Brakey. She introduced herself to me as Chief Deputy County Attorney Kim Hunley. Initially, she was cordial. However, after several trips into her office across from the election department, her attitude changed, and she became hostile. Apparently, on her trips into the office, she was reporting to someone by telephone, very likely Supervisor Rudy Malera. When Hunley returned the last time, her demeanor had changed dramatically. She called over 2 sheriff's deputies and directed them to me, claiming my photographs were taken illegally and demanding that I delete them. I explained that I was in a public space and had every right to take photos, particularly since a public livestream camera was also broadcasting from inside the elections department to the world. ACLUAZ, know your rights, photographers. Nevertheless, after taking the photos of the counting area, perfectly legal under Arizona's open government standards, under pressure from the officers and the threat of arrest, I reluctantly deleted 2 of the 3 photos. Being a little rattled by this incident, after a few minutes I decided to leave and said goodnight. Obviously, someone followed me to the Holiday Inn, where I was meeting with candidates. Several minutes after my arrival, Supervisor Rudy Molera showed up, poorly dressed, unshaved, disheveled, and agitated. He charged right at me, immediately began to verbally attack me, and then abruptly left. It appeared to be another effort to incite a confrontation and prompt me to react recklessly, but I remained calm. The 2 candidates I was speaking with, who witnessed Molera's verbal assault against me, were as stunned as I was. Former Mayor John Doyle was not surprised and mentioned that Molera was known for such behavior. Following these 2 incidents, I said goodbye and conclude my evening and return home to Tucson. During my journey home, I had to stop on the side of the road for about 45 minutes because I experienced a significant anxiety attack, which was likely caused by the adrenaline from being threatened twice. County made false accusations against me. Exhibit, Re, Disruptive Conduct by AUDIT USA Director JohnBrakey, linked to letter and my detailed notes. On August 4, 2 days after the incidents described above, my attorney received a letter from Pierce Coleman on behalf of the county, falsely accusing me of disruptive conduct and further accusing me of having broken the law by observing the central count area and taking photographs. The letter did not mention that I had been personally invited to observe by the elections director. Additionally, the law that Pierce Coleman referenced in accusing me of unlawfully observing, ARS 16-621, clearly states that the public is allowed to observe. In response to the county's accusatory letter, my attorney, Bill Reisner, and I submitted multiple public records requests regarding the events that occurred on election night. Knowing that at least 2 surveillance cameras were present in the hallway, we specifically requested the footage. The official response? No footage exists. We also requested incident reports from the Sheriff's Department related to this event. Their response: no reports were filed. The complete absence of documentation, no video, no reports, destroys the credibility of the county's accusatory letter. The claim that there was no footage from the surveillance cameras, which would have destroyed their claim that I was disruptive, also seems to be a lie, since surveillance cameras were present in the area where I was confronted by the deputy sheriffs. Below is a labeled photograph showing the observation area at the Santa Cruz Elections Department. I document everything carefully, including immediate notes taken after any serious incident. Importance of cameras at election offices. Santa Cruz County told my attorney that it had no surveillance footage of the public observation area where I was wrongly confronted and threatened by 2 sheriff's deputies, even though 2 surveillance cameras are mounted in that area. It appears that the county is not telling the truth about having no camera footage since it would have shown I did nothing wrong. However, this points out the importance of surveillance cameras, not only in the public viewing area but also monitoring critical backroom operations. Link to video: Santa Cruz Co. sued Audit Elections USA and JohnBrakey for filing a public records request and lost badly. 40-minute interview. As an example of how important surveillance can be. In 2015, I caught Pima County election staff unlawfully opening the computer system after the logic and accuracy test had been completed, as shown in the picture below. We have captured some notable video on those cameras. As an example of how important surveillance can be, in 2015 we caught Pima County election staff unlawfully opening the computer system after the logic and accuracy test had been completed, as shown in the picture. Link to JohnBrakey's Substack published April 8, 2025, Chapter Number 1, Audit USA, Understanding the Past to Protect the Future of Elections, Democracy, and Our Democratic Republic. Video excerpt: JohnBrakey on Wake Up Tucson. Pima County tried to rig another bond election, Thursday, October 29, 2015. Watch, 11-minute video. This is what cheating with impunity looks like. Read Chapter Number 1. This incident occurred several hours after the logic and accuracy (LNA) test was completed, and a seal was placed on the closed door of the system, to remain unopened until the next morning when ballot counting would begin. This event happened hours after I, Brakey, had left the observation room. After returning home, I spent some time writing and emailing various individuals about the LNA test. Following my routine, I accessed the election department's live feed via a hyperlink. Shortly thereafter, I observed the event taking place. Here is a link to my letter to the Secretary of State Michelle Reagan. The result of making them redo the logic and accuracy test just before they start counting ballots. All 7 bond measures failed. See results, short video 5 minutes, Fraction Magic by Benny Smith. Santa Cruz redaction and cover-up. I made a request to Santa Cruz County for all the Pierce Coleman invoices related to the county's lawsuit against me. The county responded by providing invoices that are heavily redacted, concealing basic billing data such as dates, totals, and task descriptions, all of which are clearly public under Arizona law. Their rationale? That disclosure would be detrimental to the county. That's not a legal exemption. It's an excuse. Picture of redacted invoices. In addition to substantial redactions on all the invoices provided to Audit USA, it appears that the county is withholding invoices for a 7-month period. Pierce Coleman conducted legal work on this case from August 1, 2024, to February 1, 2025. This information is verified by our responses to those filings. Additionally, here is a link to the billing from August 2, 2022, to July 30, 2024. Note that the redactions make it difficult to evaluate details which are not confidential information or legal strategies, just invoices. That's why I've renewed my formal demand for full, unredacted invoices, and I may have to file a special action under ARS Section 39 to 121.02 to compel compliance if necessary. I'll seek legal sanctions, attorney fees, and an official investigation into this county's misconduct. However, the public shouldn't have to rely on the courts just to get at public records. Santa Cruz County is attempting to cover up the amount it has paid to Pierce Coleman for its unjustified lawsuit against me. This cover-up includes redacting billing invoices so that they cannot be easily connected to my lawsuit, and withholding months of invoices to make the total amount spent look less than it actually is. There are several possible explanations for why the county is redacting invoices and trying to conceal the money spent on this case. One reason is that it is a complete waste of taxpayer money to keep paying Pierce Coleman for a case that the county has already lost twice in Pima Superior Court and will lose again. It's embarrassing. Another reason is that Justin Pierce of Pierce Coleman falsely told the Superior Court judge in a hearing that the county had spent way less than $70,000 on this case, an amount that my attorney, Bill Reisner, had estimated in court. Bill was right, however, the amount was close to $70,000 at the time. Today it's somewhere around $100,000. Misstatements to the court. On August 11, 2022, my attorney Bill Reisner received a letter from Pierce Coleman, written on behalf of Santa Cruz County, stating that the records requested will be transmitted to you by 5 p.m. on August 18, 2022 via a file share link provided by the county. The requested records included the CVR. This letter contained no conditional language. However, just hours before the promised delivery time on August 18, Santa Cruz County filed its unexpected lawsuit against Audit USA and me personally. This legal action contradicted Pierce Coleman's August 11 letter stating that the county would provide the requested records on August 18. The county's legal action also contradicted its past practice of releasing the cast vote record. To quote from the August 11 letter from the county's attorney explicitly stated, "For items 2 to 6, we have identified these records requested and determined the time allotted to produce the records, which will be transmitted to you by 5 p.m. on August 18, 2022, via a file share link provided by the county." Not only did the county fail to act in good faith to fulfill its commitment to provide the CVR to Audit, but Pierce Coleman later misrepresented the contents of this letter to the court. Instead of acknowledging that Pierce Coleman, on behalf of the county, had made a clear commitment to provide the requested records on August 18, 2022, Pierce Coleman misled the judge by changing the wording of the letter and the meaning of it in its filing to the court on August 15, 2022. In its court filing, Pierce Coleman stated, "On August 11, 2022, the county wrote to the defendant that the ballot images were not subject to disclosure due to statutory protection under ARS 16-625, but the remaining records were likely to be ready for disclosure during the week of August 15, 2022, and would be transmitted electronically following the completion of statutory election duties, including the election canvass." This was false. The original letter contained no such uncertainty. The county's revised court filing altered the definitive statement that was in its August 11 letter and attempted to mislead the court. For any ethical public official or attorney, this distortion of the facts should be considered disqualifying. That's one of the reasons my attorney Bill Reisner is asking for a culprit hearing to determine who authorized this slap-style lawsuit. Obstructed communication and misinformation under the guise of law. When I included all 3 members of the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors in a public email, as allowed under Arizona law, County Attorney Robert May falsely claimed it violated open meeting laws. Link to Mr. May email, my response, and the law March 7, 2025. After realizing that the Board of Supervisors had been misinformed by their attorneys, I decided to make a good faith effort to open a dialogue. I then requested a meeting with newly elected Supervisor Luis Carlos Davis. What followed was disheartening. Rather than engaging in a productive discussion, I was met with a scripted, one-sided session. Davis was accompanied by Assistant County Manager Chris Young, who made it clear that neither he nor Davis would answer any questions but would only listen. Excerpt from my letter of June 4, regarding our meeting on Monday, June 2, I wrote, "I was disappointed by the lack of open dialogue during our meeting. As an elected supervisor, your role goes beyond simply listening. It requires engaging in meaningful, two-way conversations, especially when the public raises serious matters affecting the integrity of county government." The presence of Assistant County Manager Chris Young, who stated you were both there only to listen, effectively restricted the exchange of information. It gave the impression that your ability to speak freely was being deliberately constrained, and it limited your access to essential facts. Link to letter to Supervisor Davis of June 4, 25. A pattern of retaliation and cover-up. Santa Cruz County's actions demonstrate its fear of transparency, and its actions constitute a deliberate, targeted campaign of intimidation and retaliation against me personally. Since I submitted my records request on July 28, 2022, Santa Cruz County has filed a lawsuit against me simply for exercising my rights under public records law, for simply asking for county election records. Reversed course without notice, suing me on the same day they promised to deliver records, a promise made in writing to my attorney. They did not deliver the records on August 18, 2022 as promised, but filed a lawsuit instead. Threatened me with arrest twice for taking photographs in a public viewing area at the Elections Department, despite clear First Amendment protections. Falsely accused me of disruptive conduct. Heavily redacted Pierce Coleman invoices, concealing all basic information. Withheld 7 months of Pierce Coleman billing records, despite evidence of ongoing legal work. Filed an inaccurate document to mislead the court. Blocked or attempted to block meetings with county officials who are legally obligated to serve the public. In addition to the county's actions against me, I was followed to a public event by County Supervisor Rudy Molera, who verbally assaulted me in front of witnesses. A dangerous precedent. If Santa Cruz County is allowed to get away with this, it sends a dangerous message that governments can sue citizens for asking questions, hide financial records under bogus legal claims, and weaponize litigation against watchdogs. "This case is a direct threat to democracy," said Ken Bennett, chair of Audit USA and former Secretary of State of Arizona. "If government can hire private attorneys to weaponize the courts against citizens who ask legitimate questions, then our constitutional right to ask for governmental records is in peril, and seeking transparency becomes a liability rather than a right. This isn't just wrong, it's a threat to open government, democracy, and our democratic republic." Audit USA response. My legal team has filed a cross-appeal with the Arizona Court of Appeals on February 14, 2025 asserting, as did the Pima County Superior Court judge, that the county's lawsuit is not justiciable, meaning the county had no right to sue a member of the public simply for requesting an elections record, and, as the Superior Court judge also noted, there was no actual dispute at the time the county filed its lawsuit. This isn't incompetence. It's a calculated effort to bury the truth, and taxpayers are footing the bill. Defending ourselves against the Santa Cruz lawsuit is not about the CVR. It's about the lawful ability of we the people to request public records as part of our constitutional right to oversee our government and to do so without fear of retaliation. "This lawsuit is not only baseless, it's punitive," said Attorney Reisner. It violates both the spirit of transparency and the letter of the law. This is about protecting every Arizonan's right to ask questions without fear of retaliation. Audit USA urges the public, press, and elected officials to take notice and stand up for open government and our First Amendment protections. Pierce-Coleman incompetence. Although Pierce-Coleman claims to have expertise in election and public records law, their incompetence has made itself clear in several instances, including the lawsuit they filed against me and my organization. To date, Santa Cruz County has wasted approximately $100,000 in taxpayer money on litigation in this case, and they're not yet done wasting money. The Superior Court judge made clear from the beginning that the county was not justified in suing me simply for requesting a public record. In the judge's own words, the county's lawsuit against me is not justiciable because it is outside the bounds of public records law. Despite clear rulings against the county, Pierce-Coleman has dragged the case out for nearly 3 years, appealing multiple times, earning huge legal fees, and squandering taxpayer funds in the process. Another instance of Pierce-Coleman's incompetence can be found in the letter they wrote to me on August 4, 2022 after I observed the August 2, 2022 primary election at the Santa Cruz Elections Office. They accused me of being an unlawful observer at the Elections Department on election night because I wasn't appointed by a political party, but the statute they referenced, ARS 16-621, clearly states that the public can observe at the central counting location. The county paid Pierce-Coleman taxpayer money to write me this legally inaccurate letter. Another blatant example of Pierce-Coleman's incompetence was its representation of the town of Prescott Valley in Yavapai County in defense of the town's attempt to keep an issue off the ballot. Pierce-Coleman argued on behalf of the town that the group collecting signatures for the ballot issue had to get 10% of all votes cast in the last election, not 10% of all voters, meaning they wanted the county to be able to add up every vote on every ballot cast in the last election and take 10% of the total votes. This wacky interpretation of Arizona law would have meant that 5,709 signatures would have had to be gathered, instead of just 1,455. The group collecting signatures considered this unreasonable and decided to sue the town. Instead of advising the town properly, Pierce-Coleman collected legal fees to defend against an indefensible argument, again wasting taxpayer money. Prescott Valley lost the case, and rightfully so. Pierce-Coleman's reading of Arizona law was deemed to be unconstitutional. County government should consider the implications of hiring private attorneys who may prioritize their own financial interests over effective governance. A new vulnerability, when control replaces oversight. In my 2022 review of Santa Cruz County's election infrastructure, I found no evidence of active manipulation within the elections department itself. In fact, everything I saw going on in the election department looked good compared to what I dealt with in 2014. However, I identified a much greater risk in the recorder's office, particularly in the procedures overseen by then-recorder Suzanne Susie Sines, who held the office for 27 years. Her mother, Mary Lou Sines, served in the same role from 1980 through the early 1990s. In fact, Mary Lou was a guest at my wedding in 1978. Susie Sines ran an absentee ballot system that lacked even the most basic checks and balances. She maintained sole control over vote-by-mail ballots, from their receipt and signature verification, and then submit them to the election department in their envelopes. External ballot drop boxes were placed at precinct, and Sines personally retrieved the ballots, taking them back to her office, without any public observation or bipartisan oversight of the intake or handling process. The public was completely shut out of verifying how these ballots were processed. This system of total control enabled a situation ripe for abuse even if no wrongdoing was proven. It was a structure built to conceal, not to reassure. And the 2020 Democratic primary tells the story. Susie Sines narrowly defeated Anita Moreno by just 96 votes, 3,275 to 3,179, a margin of 1.5%. Moreno won handily on Election Day, receiving 514 in-person votes to Sines' 357, a margin of 157 votes, or 58.7% to 41.3% for that segment of the electorate. Provisional ballots told the same story, Moreno 16, Sines 9. A margin of 64% to 36% for Sines. That election outcome was decided by the vote-by-mail process, controlled entirely by the incumbent. In a race that close process matters. And control without oversight is not just a vulnerability, it's an invitation to corruption. This wasn't just bad practice. It was a system designed to cheat and avoid scrutiny. That's not how democracy should function. And let's not forget, during that same campaign, Saenz admitted she didn't work on Fridays and only worked 5 to 7 hours a day. Yet she had full control over the most sensitive part of the election process. That's not public service, it was unchecked power. Whether the outcome was manipulated or not, the system itself was built to allow it. And in any functioning democracy, that is unacceptable. Previously, vote by mail (VBM) drop-off ballots were collected in a simple secure sealed box inside the precinct, or mailed in. Then inventoried at the precinct and turned over to the recorder's office, with the count of VBM recorded in the precinct's end-of-day report. Saenz was aware that I had knowledge of her improper handling of the vote-by-mail ballots, which made her particularly cautious around me. Whenever I asked a straightforward simple question, she would insist on me formally submitting a records request. Susie Saenz may have been one of those who provoked the lawsuit by making false allegations against me. However, Saenz preferred to resign than have her unlawful VBM procedures exposed in court, and that's what she did, resigning on December 22, 2022. Link to the notes regarding County Recorder Suzanne Saenz and the events on election night. Links to sources of information: Nogales Int, Source 1, Source 2. Past examples of election misconduct in Santa Cruz County. The county's current retaliatory acts against me are based on past history. In 2014, I filed a public records lawsuit against Santa Cruz County. My top request was simple: identify who was programming the county's Diebold/GEMS election system. Testifying under oath, County Clerk also Elections Director Melinda Meek testified that no outside vendor was involved and that she managed all the programming herself. That testimony was false. After winning the case and obtaining the records, we discovered that the system had long been programmed by William E. Doyle, a private contractor operating out of Glendale, Arizona. Melinda Meeks was so close to the Doyles that she referred to them in writing as Mom and Dad. Doyle accessed election systems remotely using modem lines, technically enabling him to load or adjust election databases from afar. If the system had a problem, Doyle would instruct them to turn on the modems so he could enter the system and fix the problems or load the database to the system. This activity was illegal at the time and banned in Arizona, likely due to its exposure. Doyle canceled his corporation and became a DBA, doing business as, to avoid public visibility. Meeks provided false testimony in court to protect herself and the Doyles. You can view Meeks' perjured testimony here. Meeks' court testimony starts at 647. Question: County Attorney. Why doesn't it exist? A. Meeks: because there's not one, because I do it myself. GEMS audit logs proved otherwise. Doyle was not only programming Santa Cruz County's system, he was programming systems for multiple counties. Question by County Attorney John Holman, answers by Melinda Meek on Wednesday, September 24, 2014. Q. OK. If I could draw your attention to have a look side by side at Exhibit 6 and also Exhibit 1, which on page 3 identifies the 10 itemized requests made by Plaintiff Brakey. The response made by the county is that the document as requested does not exist. What do you mean by that? What's meant by that? The one you're referring to is that item. Q. Item number 1. We're going to go down the stream. Item number 1? So it's my understanding that in the public records request, as the item was requested, it does not exist. Q. OK. And why is that? Because there is not one. Q. OK. And I guess just for the court's benefit, what was being requested was an electronic copy of the contract with the vendor who programs the Central County election computer and the AccuVote memory card, and you're saying that does not exist? It doesn't exist because I do that myself, it's done in-house. Q. So there is no contract, there is no vendor that would satisfy. In my opinion, no. After winning the lawsuit, we discovered that Doyle would fork the database post-configuration of statewide races and customize it for each county, as seen in the GEMS audit log for other counties. Even more concerning, Doyle had access to the same phone modem lines used to transmit precinct results on election night. These channels provided a potential man-in-the-middle vulnerability and enabled election interference techniques like fraction magic and Santa Cruz County, AZ. These were not hypothetical risks, they were systemic flaws. Shortly after we exposed this setup, Doyle quietly retired. For more details, see William E. Doyle, the hidden de facto statewide election director. The Curious Business of William E. Doyle, J.T. Waldron. Andrew Appel's 2018 report, Are Voting Machine Modems Truly Divorced from the Internet? Why does all of this matter? Transparency in elections is crucial as it supports the foundation of democracy. Cast vote records, ballot images, and public audit logs serve as important tools for citizens to verify that votes are counted accurately in the digital age. They are anonymous records and require no special credentials to understand. But when those in power suppress these tools and attack the people who ask to see them, what does that say about the system? Comprehensive solutions. Restoring trust through transparency in Santa Cruz County, Arizona. 1. Establish the Santa Cruz County Citizens Election Transparency Commission. Purpose: create an independent commission to oversee elections, budget practices, public records compliance, and more. Structure: 1 appointment from each county supervisor, or they may serve themselves. 5 additional members from Arizona's major voter affiliations: Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, Independent, Arizona's second largest group. This ensures diversity of thought and protection from partisanship or groupthink. Powers: monitor election processes, mail ballots, CVRs, ballot image handling. Audit election-related spending and grant use. Hold public meetings monthly, live-streamed and archived. Issue annual public reports and recommendations. Model: based on the successful Pima County Election Integrity Commission, operating since July 1, 2008. Link to Pima County Election Integrity Commission bylaws. Proposed mission statement. The mission of the Santa Cruz County Election Integrity and Transparency Commission is to restore public trust by promoting transparency, accountability, and citizen oversight in all government operations. We are committed to ensuring that elections and all public affairs are conducted lawfully, openly, and with the highest standards of integrity. Per ARS Section 39-121, Arizona's foundational public records law. Public records and other matters in the custody of any officer shall be open to inspection by any person at all times during office hours. This law guarantees public access to government records, unless exempted. Transparency is mandatory by law. We believe that transparency is not just a buzzword, it is the cure for corruption. That's why we advocate for openness across all government sectors, including elections, budgeting, contracting, legal expenditures, and administrative decision-making. The Commission stands for truth, accountability, and the principle that voting is a secret process, but counting and governing must be public. 2. Enforce public records laws, no more excuses. Fully uphold ARS Sections 39-121. And unlawful redactions of legal invoices, contracts, and vendor payments. Immediately publish ballot images, cast vote records, CVRs, audit logs, and tabulator reports post-election. Launch a public records dashboard to track open records requests and response times. Accountability starts with accessibility. 3. Protect whistleblowers and end legal retaliation. Pass a local whistleblower protection ordinance for county employees and vendors. Prohibit using county funds to sue citizens who request records or speak out. Uphold anti-SLAPP, strategic lawsuits against public participation, principles. Require independent legal review of all lawsuits filed by the county against individuals or nonprofits. 4. Upgrade election department surveillance systems. To ensure proper security and transparency, the county must modernize its camera systems in all areas related to election operations. These upgrades should include motion-activated recording. Cameras must automatically activate when anyone enters the election department. Full coverage of critical systems. Cameras must provide continuous, clear visibility of the EMS, election management system, computer and both DS450 central count scanners. Ballot storage under surveillance. All areas where ballots are stored must be under continuous video monitoring. Functionality audit and repair. Any non-functioning hallway or room cameras must be promptly inspected and repaired to ensure no gaps in coverage. Why it matters. Transparency doesn't just apply to records, it includes physical processes. Surveillance deters misconduct and provides a verifiable chain of custody for election materials. This is standard best practice in counties prioritizing election integrity. Exhibit EZSOS 2023 Elections Procedures Manual, page 201, via providing live video recording at central counting place. For any statewide, legislative, or county election, and subject to local appropriation, the county officer in charge of elections must provide a live video recording of the custody of all ballots when ballots are present in the tabulation room and the central counting place. The county officer in charge of elections must timely provide the website hyperlink to the Secretary of State, who must publish those hyperlinks on the Secretary of State's website. ARS Section 16-621D. 5. Implement programs like ABE, Auditable Ballot Examination. Adopt ABE, a cost-free, citizen-powered election audit tool that uses ballot images, cast vote records, batch-level vote totals, chain of custody and audit logs. Why programs like ABE? It's low cost and ABE is free. Microsoft Excel is available. It reconciles election results with the actual ballot's images. It empowers citizens to trust but verify, enhancing voter turnout. We must be able to see how every vote was interpreted without guessing. 6. Oversee federal and state grant spending. Require that all federal-state grants, especially those for law enforcement, border security, and health crises, undergo independent financial audits, transparent line-item public reporting, public dashboards for real-time tracking, public comment periods before fund allocation. Unmonitored money fuels corruption. Oversight prevents it. 7. Promote civic education and empower grassroots oversight. Host community forums, town halls, and Know Your Government teach-ins. Develop civic report cards rating departments and officials based on transparency and responsiveness. Partner with schools, colleges, and veterans groups to train the next generation of civic watchdogs, commissioners, and reform candidates. An informed and engaged public is the best defense against corruption. 8. The path forward, from exposure to action. This plan does not seek to tear down Santa Cruz County, it seeks to build it back better through transparency, truth, and accountability. Santa Cruz County is not alone in facing systemic corruption, but it can be a national leader in reform. By creating an independent Citizens Transparency Commission, enforcing public records laws, adopting AB, and protecting civic participation, we can transform Santa Cruz from concealed and corrupt to open and accountable. The supervisor's role: to oversee bureaucracy, not to serve it. Per the Arizona Clean Elections Commission, county supervisors are elected to provide oversight and direction for county operations. Their responsibilities include approving budgets, setting tax rates, the important role of conducting elections, and ensuring that county departments operate ethically and efficiently. azcleanelections.gov. Democracy dies in darkness, but it can be revived in the light of transparency. Let's turn on the lights together. Transparency equals truth. JohnBrakey, Director, Audit Elections USA.